Everybody, welcome back. And I've recently launched a series looking at all of the major points and miles issuers. And I started with Wells Fargo just because I am the most intimately familiar with Wells Fargo as a Wells Fargo customer over the last decade plus. I have been looking to get other creators to assist me with looking back at other creators for this year. And I started off with Chase. And when I think of Chase, the first person that comes to mind is Dugras from Dugras Reports. And so he graciously took time out of his schedule to talk to me about the Chase program, what Chase has been up to this year, which really hasn't been a lot. And so we did talk a little bit about that. And since Chase is the largest credit card issuer and Chase, doesn't, since they're already at the top, they don't have to do a lot. And we did keep that in mind. But there have been changes, and we wanted to talk about those changes primarily to the Chase Sapphire Reserve and to the Aeroplan card. Those two cards have seen the most significant news. We did talk about some elevated welcome offers on the World of Hyatt card and the new welcome offer on the Chase Sapphire Preferred. And so whether or not Chase may be facing pressures either from American Express moving upmarket potentially, or Citi and Wells Fargo moving closer to Chase with their potential new offerings with the Citi Strata Elite and the Wells Fargo Autograph Beyond. Both are still rumored cards. We don't know what those cards look like. I would expect those cards to be in the, anywhere from $395 to $550, potentially higher depending on what sort of credits and benefits that those cards give. But since we don't currently have those cards as active cards at the moment, it's really hard to judge whether or not Chase will have to respond to them. So taking as realistic a view as we can right now in October of 2024, we just looked at the entirety of the year so far and what we might see for the rest of the year, which may not be a lot with Chase. So with that in mind, I appreciate Dugras taking the time. It's a pretty lengthy interview, but I hope you all stick around for it. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your support here on YouTube. If you like what I do, hit the like and subscribe button down below. If you want to join the channel as a channel member, check out the Tidbits Collector. It is the one and only channel membership that I have. And if you want to support me outside of YouTube, check out the pinned comment as well. Additionally, I co-host the Stack Your Points podcast. It is a podcast that we record on Monday nights. We release in portions on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We did have to re-record as a emergency live last night with Josh from the Josh Gable YouTube channel. Josh, I appreciate your help. But definitely check out my co-hosts. That would be Lonnie from Call Me Lonnie, RJ from Do You Take Cards, and Tariq from Reeks Rewards. But definitely subscribe to the podcast. We have a lot of fun doing it, and we appreciate everyone who watches and supports. So thank you so much for your time. Here's the interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I have Dugras from Dugras Reports, and we're going to talk about Chase at the end of the year, looking at the beginning of next year, just kind of getting a feel with what we've seen, what we're hoping to see for the end of the year, or looking a little bit forward thinking. Dugras,
Sure.
how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Matt?
Not too bad at all. Thank you so much for assisting me with this little end of the year project.
You're welcome. Happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you and I are both Chase card users. You much longer termed. I only jumped into Chase last year, but you have a lot of point strategies, a lot of knowledge with their system. And while we both have joked offline that Chase doesn't have to do anything because of where they are with how many cards they issue, the ongoing ink train, and all of that, how do you feel Chase has with what Chase has done this year? We've had a couple of big changes, like they've lost priority past restaurants. They just added more lounge access to the Chase Sapphire Reserve. There's new welcome offers for the World of Hyatt card. And then the Aeroplan card. Like, how do you feel Chase's year has been overall?
Yeah, I guess if I was grading them, I'd give them a C, maybe a C plus overall. Obviously, losing Priority Pass restaurants from the CSR is kind of a bummer. I was really hoping to keep that.
Yeah.
I was thinking about maybe next year when I go under 524, heading down the path to the Ritz-Carlton card eventually, and was like, oh yeah, I'll get all these Priority Pass restaurants, but psych, nope, won't. I do have 8 visits I can get through my altitude reserve with US Bank, but I don't know that I would use more than that, but I have a family of 4, so I mean, that would be like when we went to Washington, D.C., 4 people on the way there, 4 people on the way back, and you've used it all up in one vacation. So that was kind of a bummer. The elevated offer on Hyatt, and I'm assuming you're referencing the 5 free night certificates, category 1 through 4.
Yeah.
That's a step in the right direction. I don't know that it moves the needle all that much, but small step in the right direction. The Air Canada lounge access, same thing, small step in the right direction, but I would rather have just like either more Chase lounges, or I know Lounge Buddy's going away, but something like a Lounge Buddy credit where you can just use any lounge twice a year, 4 times a year, something like that.
Yeah,
so, yeah, they're average, not great, and I think that plays into what you said earlier. They don't have to do much. They're pretty content to kind of sit on their hands, it seems like.
Yeah, the way I've always thought about when I've done like comparisons of the credit card issuers to like high school students, Chase is the kid that kind of knows everything but doesn't do their homework.
Yes.
Like they sit back, and when it's test time, they're going to do really well. But if it's anything involving work, they're sort of maybe.
Right. If I just don't study at all, I can still get C's and B's. If I study really hard, I'll get an A, but I'm happy with C's and B's. So let's just roll with that.
I know this student very well. I was that student.
I had some of those tendencies too back in high school. Maybe even a little bit of college.
Yeah. Also the same. I do want to touch on the Sapphire Reserve Lounge Access. I think the Air Canada edition is a nice supplement to what they're doing, but it would have hit harder, or it would have been a bigger impact if the Las Vegas Lounge, Sapphire Lounge, had opened, or the Philadelphia Lounge had opened, or the Sky Harbor Lounge had opened, or the San Diego Lounge had opened. So you have like these 4 lounges that would still keep them further than Capital One and still far behind American Express, but like it would have been better to at least have gotten 1 or 2 of those up and running.
I agree. And I believe you would know the answer to this. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can only do that if you're flying Air Canada or their alliance. SkyTeam? Is that right?
Starlines. Any Starlines ticket with the Sapphire Reserve will get you in. So you could be flying Singapore Airways, and your ticket for Singapore will still get you into the Maple Leaf Lounge.
Okay.
And
but like if I'm flying, let's just say I'm flying Southwest from Des Moines to Los Angeles, and I have a layover there, and I continue on to Fresno. Because I'm on Southwest, even though I have the CSR, I'm not getting into that Maple Leaf Lounge. Is that correct?
Correct. But if you had done a United Express flight from Des Moines to San Francisco and then on to Sacramento, then you would be able to get in.
Okay. Yeah, I hate having to, especially living in a small market airport city, I hate having to customize my airline to which lounge I get into.
Yeah. It's not ideal to start. No. Like I understand that, you know, there are some restrictions that they have to do, because otherwise Sapphire Reserve holders would just storm the airport. It would just storm the lounge.
Right.
So the Starlines bit does make sense there, but it would just be easier if Chase opened their lounges.
Yeah. I might, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years, I might be able to use it once or twice, which will be nice, that 1 or 2 times, but it's not going to be a big deal for me. I guess if you're a business traveler and you're flying to Toronto, but not Montreal constantly, it would be nice.
It is weird to me that Montreal was not included on the initial list. I have to imagine they'll add Montreal at some point, or maybe they'll just see that it's not working, and I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I was actually considering, I think I've ruled it out, flying into Montreal and then driving down to upstate New York this fall for a brief trip.
Mm.
And then I was like, oh, wait, I wouldn't actually be able to get into that lounge. So that little icing on the cake would not exist.
Yeah. So overall, you'd say like a C plus. Not.
Yeah.
They've done a little bit here. A couple things are good. Not a whole lot. They didn't do anything monumental. Like Capital One is currently in the process of purchasing Discover. Like, I understand why they're not doing a whole lot, because they've got to do that. It's not like they lost partners. It's not like they haven't lost anything. They haven't gained anything. So that makes a whole lot of sense.
Other than the Priority Pass restaurants, they haven't lost
yes.
anything. I could say the loss of Priority Pass restaurants was offset by extending the pay yourself back on Aeroplan for an extra year. Maybe. I would feel more confident if Chase would come out and put on their landing page whether or not it will be capped next year. I just checked right before we went on the air, and the lingo still says the unlimited point part is still through the end of this year, 2024. Or just make it permanent. That would be nice.
That definitely would. So I guess that would lead into my next sort of pair of questions, which is there anything that you want to see from Chase before the end of the year? This would be one thing. Or anything you're hoping for next year from Chase. This can be, the benefits on the Aeroplan card, any revamps, is there anything you're hoping for or expecting, or anything you'd like to or put like on a wish list for next year?
Yeah, so small wish list would be the one we just mentioned, announcing that. I mean, I've already verified by logging in, and I mentioned on my live stream, the pay yourself back on Aeroplan has been extended through December of 25, but it doesn't say yet whether or not it's unlimited. So if they announced again that it's unlimited, that would be a minor victory. If they have a couple transfer bonuses to Aeroplan, that would be a minor victory. In terms of a major wish list or major victory, I don't think this will happen, but I would love it if instead of using a portal with the CSR, they just did something more like a travel eraser or a pay yourself back type feature, so that I can go out and get my travel anywhere. I've thought to myself, like, a reasonable compromise on the reserve might be you can use our portal at 1.5 and you can pay yourself back for travel at 1.25, or do something similar to what the Amex Business Platinum does. I'm sure we wouldn't get a 35% point rebate, but could we get maybe a 20% point rebate, which I think if you math it out is the equivalent of 1.25x. So that would be my big wish list thing, would be let me pay myself back if I take a tour bus in Sweden, that I can use points for that with some sort of bonus up.
So sort of akin to real-time rewards, but bigger and more international, or?
Yeah, well, basically just do what you do with Aeroplan on the CSR.
Okay. Yeah, they don't, because I know they have pay yourself back categories on it, but it's like the annual fee is 1.5, charities is like 1.25. I don't remember the other ones right now, because
those 1.25 actually.
Oh, okay.
But I could be wrong, so someone can feel free to.
Yeah, let me know in the comments. Sometimes I get hounded for not being an absolute expert on everything, so
you should be. That's your role.
I'm here to try and break down and look at the news as quickly as I can. Stuff's gonna get lost in translation. I'm sorry.
All right.
But at least I'll tell you, I don't know, and because I don't know, I can only give you what I have. So big wish list is just like a real-time rewards or pay yourself back type feature on the CSR. Is there anything else you'd like to see from the CSR or from any of the rest of the Freedom or Sapphire lineups, or do you think things are just going to stay where they are until Chase decides otherwise?
Yeah. Well, maybe if I tweak the question a little bit, at least somewhat realistic wish list things. I mean,
Sure.
I could wish that the, Chase Freedom Unlimited was a 4X everywhere, no annual fee card with no cap, but I don't think that's going to happen. But would it be realistic, to maybe wish for it to go up from 1.5 to 2? I mean, that would be realistic. Again, I kind of sort of know why they don't, but it would be nice. The argument would be probably, well, since you have the portal at 1.5, you've really got 1.5 times 1.5, which is 2.25. So in many ways, we're better than our competitors. If you're someone that only uses the travel portal and doesn't use transfer partners, I'm sure I speculate that's what's holding them back.
I absolutely I get that number. I get the math. The math absolutely maths on that. But to me, I'm going, yes, but in order to do that, you have to not only have the Freedom Unlimited, but you also need the Sapphire Reserve. And if the Sapphire Reserve at 550 isn't worth it to you for whatever number of reasons, you're still limited to 1.5. So it's always been a bit of a straw man to me, but I understand that the math checks out, but I also think that argumentatively, you need the extra card to unlock that. And because you need that card, it would just be simpler just to go with 2 and then give your travelers an extra 3/4 of a point if they're going through the portal.
Right.
Because to me, a vast majority of Chase users don't even... Chase travel users will primarily use the port. So this is the way I kind of think of things. A lot of their customers don't travel. I will just use cashback. So they're just going to get the 1 cent per point on just cashback, which is great. That's fine. Then the portion of folks who will travel and get into the travel side and are good with the 1.5 cent per point on the reserve, then the overwhelming majority of their travel customers just use the portal. And then there's that smaller section, the us's of the world, who will navigate the transfer partners, log into, move our points over to Hyatt, get our quick redemption there, move our points to Aeroplan, get a minimum 1.625 cents per point on travel when they erase, when they use their pay yourself back. We are knowing that we're a minority within Chase and the general credit card ecosystem. I don't see the harm in the extra 3/4 of a point if they move the Freedom Unlimited to 2 points. But I guess I get it.
And that also comes back to what you said at the very beginning of, they don't do it because they feel like they don't have to. They're the big dog.
They are. And that kind of leads into my last question, which is, do we think Chase will react to any potential pressures either from... So with American Express has recently taken 3 of their lower end cards off the market, out of circulation for the moment. We don't know what they're doing. We know that they are updating some of their Centurion lounges to take away spas, to add more space. We know that overcrowding has become a bit of an issue in the last couple of years, with folks either canceling their accounts because of the overcrowding, or just like they're trying to find ways to limit that. Do we think American Express will move, like, push folks out of lounges by moving annual fees up? And if they're moving annual fees up, is there room for Chase to move up a little bit or expand their reach to spurned American Express customers? Or do we see Chase possibly having to respond to other issuers who may have bigger travel cards or bigger travel plans that just haven't come to fruition yet? And that would be like the Cities and Wells Fargos of the world.
So I'll ask you for a data point if you know before I answer that. What Sapphire Reserve lounges are in the queue to be built? Do you know?
Currently, they have 4 that were announced and set to be opened at some point. Those would be Philadelphia, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and San Diego. They announced a couple of months ago that they were going to expand to LAX, to the I forget the name of the terminal, but they were going to go into LAX. And they had surprised us by taking over the Etihad lounges with at JFK and Dulles. So they have 4 operational: Hong Kong, LaGuardia, JFK, Dulles. 4 that are supposed to be opening, which would get them to 8, and then LAX would get them to 9.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the question is, what do I think Chase will do to respond to market pressures? Not so much what they should do, right?
I can go. I'm fine with either answer.
Well, let's
honestly.
open both cans of worms. How about that?
Yeah.
What I think they should do would be, yeah, they should absolutely respond to those pressures, both from American Express, but I think also from Wells Fargo, because they're starting to take a bite out of that kind of mid-range segment, like with the Autograph Journey, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Probably it's a little too soon to know in the long run how that will impact what Chase does. I know you've said before, Wells Fargo already has a fee-free card that lets you book flights in their portal at 1.5x with no annual fee. Now it's the old, I call it the Golden Ponies card, the classic Visa signature. It's a grandfathered card, or as you call it, a zombie card.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some data points that you could actually product change to it, like if you get an active cash or something like that. I don't know how accurate those are, but like if you use the ever reliable some guy on Reddit data point,
Yeah.
but you know, at least someone as fortunate as me, it already exists, so I can already, you know, get 2x on my Signify or active cash if I had one, and then
Mm-hmm.
you know, any of those points earning cards are already pooled together. If it's not a points earning card, you can transfer it 1-to-1. It's fine. You know, for calculator, whatever 2 times 1.5 is. Wait, why do I need a calculator for that? That's 3. I'm sorry. So I can already get an effective, you know, rate of return of 3 on everything else. You know, more than that on things like travel, transit, dining, streaming, that kind of stuff. So it feels like Chase should be experiencing some market pressures. I think I heard you throw out an idea once that what if the CSR, which just happens to be sitting on my desk, you know, went to 1.5x on everything. So you've kind of got your Freedom Unlimited built in.
Mm-hmm.
The One Key card from Wells Fargo already does that, even on their, you know, cheap version, the no annual fee version. It's 2x on their main version. Now, obviously, there's a big difference between earning One Key cash for Expedia and Chase. Chase is undoubtedly more valuable, but
Right.
does average Joe out there realize that, who just wants to do some traveling? So I think Chase does need to step it up, but I also then if I transition to what I think they actually will do, I think we're going to be disappointed. I think it's probably just going to be more of those little incremental things, like with the Air Canada thing. Probably of the 4 lounges that are in the queue, arguably 5, we might see one of them open next calendar year, maybe 2, maybe 3 if we're really lucky. Beyond that, honestly, I don't see any big changes. I think they're going to be just content to sit right where they are. What do you think?
I'm torn because like the I want to see Chase win everything, and not even like I want Chase to win everything, but I want to see like Chase go for the jugular, or I want to
Yeah.
see like Wells Fargo come out and make a statement with the Autograph Beyond, because I just like pure chaos. The pure chaos, like Chase tries to win everything, is they get the 4 lounges open, they announce a slew of other lounges because JFK's got 2 brand new terminals that are going to be opening in the next 2 years. Those should have lounge space. They've actually got 3 terminal projects currently. Getting like at least 1 or 2 lounges in those terminals, like announcing that they're going to get 1 or 2 lounges in those terminals would be huge. I want to see a revamp of the Sapphire Reserve to bring it more in line with the American Express Platinum. So you get hotel statuses on it. You get, I would love to see that base earning go a little bit higher, just so that I have one card to rule them all from Chase, and I only have to deal with one card and just supplement it with my inks, or run an ink train to just rebuild my stash really quickly if I have to. I would love to see Chase just, continue to expand on their lounge network of just like, you've got the Sapphire Reserve. Okay. Like the American Express Platinum, not only are you going to get into Air Canada lounges, you're going to get into, you're going to get a couple of passes into the United Club, much like our Delta partnership, because they're going down to what, 10 or 6 or 10, either 6 or 10 passes into the Delta Sky Lounge starting next year. Like they're cutting from unlimited down to whatever number. Chase can just match that number and just say, whatever number of Delta passes American Express is doing, you can get those number of United Club passes. Expand with other, either expand with more Star Alliance partners, or do the same thing with British Airways executive clubs. And that way you can, if you're flying American Airlines or British Airways or any other One World partner, you can get into the lounges with your Sapphire Reserve. So expand that so that you're now on a better travel footing with the Platinum, and you're expanding your lounges. And just buy the dang club. Just buy the club.
Yeah.
Contact the Collinson Group, pay whatever money you have to pay. Just do it, because the funniest thing I can think of is another issuer coming in, buying the club or buying the Collinson Group as an insurance play, and getting, the club, the overall insurance, and Priority Pass, because Collinson Group also owns Priority Pass, and just making the club their like signature. Just
would that pull Priority Pass away from all the other issuers, you think?
I think they would keep the Priority Pass. Has to be a big moneymaker for Collinson. So I would keep that money train there, and then make the club like it. Let's say Wells Fargo bought Collinson Group for the insurance, bought it for Priority Pass, bought it to include the club. It would be the Wells Fargo lounge by the club, but all the other Priority Pass lounges just stay where they are, and you keep the access going with everybody, with whatever memberships you're doing. But then Wells Fargo would effectively have all of those club locations, which I think is like 22 between the US and UK. And then you take that away from Chase, which is why I say Chase needs to defensively buy this lounge network. Like, they would then be able to control their destiny, and just the only thing you have to do is pay rent or like lease out the space at whatever airport. So
I'm thinking like every Priority Pass I've ever been to in the United States, with one exception, was the club. I don't know that I've been to any others.
That's fair. I know that internationally that they have other brands under Priority Pass, but I think here it's just primarily the club.
Yeah, and in St. Louis there was some random, it's called the Wingtips Lounge, which is Priority Pass but not part of the club.
Okay.
But other than that, they've all been the club. Atlanta, Dallas, Charlotte. There's probably others. I'm not a big lounge guy, so
I've only been to
available.
Yeah, I've only been to one or two, but I like the idea. I like that my Sapphire Reserve got me in, no problem. But I once you get into those like higher end lounges, it's like, oh well, this is nice. Maybe Chase should do more of this. So those would be fun, but I don't know that we're going to see a new card. I don't know what Project Emerald is. I would love to find out more about that. I'm hoping to hear more about it before the end of the year, but maybe that's next year thing.
Oh, I don't know anything about it. Was that just like a trademark someone found?
It is, and the thinking is there might be like Emerald cards, or maybe Emerald is a step between Sapphire Banking and Chase Private Client.
Okay.
Or maybe it's a play like Bank of America's Preferred Rewards and whatever U.S. Bank is doing with Smartly Rewards. That is going to be another video, and I've got Spathco for that one.
Oh, okay, cool. And then if we loop back around, you kept throwing out the term Collinson Group, which I know nothing about, but based on context, I picked up that they own not only Priority Pass, but also the new insurance that Chase is going to use. Is that right?
So I don't know about the insurance because that is through Assurant, but they
Oh, I'm
are
sorry.
a insurance company. They're like
Okay.
a multi. They're in a bunch of different businesses, one of which happens to be insurance.
Okay. But whatever the change is that Chase is going to have real soon on their travel insurances,
is not that.
I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. As far as I'm aware, none of the actual coverages are changing. It's just the administering company is changing. Is that right?
The administering company is changing. I believe, if I remember correctly, your like the CDW had like a cap of 50,000. That's going to go up to 60,000.
Okay.
So you get a little bit more. Then the new company, I think it's Assurant. I want to say it's Assurant. And again, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. The new company is going to have new rules for New York State drivers. So I'm a New York State resident. Wherever I rent a car in the US, I'm always going to have secondary insurance. If I move to New Jersey, or if I give up New York State insurance, car insurance, I would then be primary.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm a New York State resident, I am always going to be secondary. Whereas when I rented a car from New York, I was always secondary from New York. But now if I go to New Orleans or I go to Las Vegas, I'm still going to have secondary coverage wherever I am. That part stings. But I just think that's a New York State specific thing. And that's probably going to start happening on, the American Express Platinum. It's going to happen on the Venture X. It's going to happen on any other major card. So I think that's just the cost of doing business in New York. That's not like Chase having to fix something.
I heard someone say somewhere, I don't remember where it was, that has to do something with a New York State law or an interpretation of a law or a ruling that basically, because so many people live in New York City and don't have car insurance at all, basically for those people that don't have it at all, you have to give primary.
Yeah.
But then people that do own a car, so they have car insurance, are kind of screwed and they get pushed back to secondary. So for some people, it's a benefit. For others, it's a detriment.
Yeah. Basically,
but
when
for
I
the
rent
rest
a car,
of us, non-New York residents, do you think are any of those insurance changes meaningful, or is it just a big nothing burger? To me, it just sounds like a big nothing burger.
I think it's just going to be on the top level, like some of the added, like the higher number that you're covered to is nice, but it's not going to be effectively any different.
Yeah, I'm not really renting cars with an MSRP over 50,000 anyway, generally.
Yeah.
So, but who knows? With inflation, maybe in a few years we'll be there.
Or those President Circles upgrades. They get you like right up to or those President Circle upgrades.
That's true. I wonder how much. I haven't even looked. Like, how much does a brand new minivan cost nowadays? I don't know.
Depends on how many features it has. It can actually. It's starting to get to close to 50K.
Oh wow!
If it's fully tricked out, yeah.
Okay, so maybe it was a necessary increase. What would be awesome, if we're combining the wish list thing, is if Chase brought their insurance in-house like Amex and just handled their own claims. Because everything I've heard is that's a much better experience than when it's farmed out.
I like the vertical integration play a little bit easier, just because your credit card holders will have a better time if you're presenting better service in-house than, everything was great on this card until I had to deal with, it's not Geico, until I had to deal with Assurant, or until I had to deal with eClaims Online, or until I had to deal with whoever, right?
Yeah.
That's why everyone still loves the American Express insurance. Like, they'll pay that $24 a month, or they'll pay the extra $50 a year just because they know that everything's handled in-house.
Right.
And like, they still have underwriter, like the underwriting company is still like slightly separate, but you don't deal with the underwriting company. You deal with American Express, and American Express takes care of everything for you.
Right. And that's why, as of right now, I guess maybe I'm hypocritical because I'm happy to put my rental cars on the CSR. But if I'm buying like a durable good, like a laptop computer or a guitar for my son or something like that, I'll always put it on an Amex card. And the one time I had a claim, it was great. It was super easy. It was quick.
Yep. Well, just to wrap things up, do you have any final thoughts on Chase or what they've done, what they could do? Anything to kind of just wrap up here?
You know, since I got into the Points of Miles game in 2019, the reasons why I was attracted to Chase in the first place haven't really changed. I mean, you had the 1.5 in the portal back then. You had arguably the best travel protections of any of the premium cards. You have the ability to earn a lot of points quickly with things like the ink trains, like the, although I know you're not a fan, rotating quarterly categories, when it happens to align with something useful like pharmacy or grocery or gas. So, yeah, as long as I keep having the mindset of I just want to earn a lot of points quickly, Chase is going to win. And I almost feel bad saying that because that means they don't really have to change anything to fit great into the style of someone like me, who's mostly a domestic, I wouldn't say budget because that implies I'm sleeping at like, you know, a Motel 6, but maybe a value traveler. You know, I don't necessarily always have to stay at a Salamander resort. Sometimes the Holiday Inn Express is just fine. So for me, they tend to win in that regard.
No, that definitely makes sense. The only thing I ever really stick with the rotating cards is just there's a bank that does it better that I want them to emulate. That's all. But no, I do understand the appeal. I do understand like they're really easy to get lots of points with. So, do you guys? I want to thank you for your time and yeah, just your thoughts here. And I wanted to turn to a resident Chase expert.
Thanks, appreciate it, Matt.
No problem. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.